In the heart of Port Moresby, symbolically close to the icon of freedom, a cultural revival started, weaving the old with the new, balancing the traditional with the modern. The Bilum campaign, championed by the United Nations Population Fund, paved the way for conversations over sexual and reproductive health, a topic not so much forbidden but considered sacred in Papua New Guinea. At the center of it, the Bilum, representing the womb, but also intertwined with the very identity of a woman and her journey. In a tribute to the customs, a houseman and a housemary were replicated, traditional gender spaces reserved for the elderly to pass on their wisdom and ways to the youth.
How do you define a real man in PNG? What does it mean?
The men were the guardians, they were the bodyguards of their village, if you like, but more so their own families. When you come forward to our society, like modern Papua New Guinea, that role has actually changed somewhat. Perhaps men no longer see themselves as having the responsibility to sort of care for the family unit, to care for the tribal unit or the village unit. The man is in fact contributing much less in the household than the woman is.
I think of a houseman as a community of men that hold each other accountable in terms of the values and the principles and the characteristics that a man should be positively portraying. When they tell you how to carry yourself, you don't only try to replicate it, but you know that they're looking at you to hold you accountable to act in that manner. I grew up listening to Sapos yung man and bayu paitim bros na senap na toktok at that time. And that was all we heard about what makes a real man. It put me in a place where I asked myself, if that's what a real man in Papua New Guinea is, then what am I? And I think we found ourselves in a place where we're still trying to properly translate and connect this cultural idea of what a man in Papua New Guinea is, and in terms of what the modern man is, and trying to find that middle ground.
What do we need for that man to be found again?
When I talk about young men being lost, I actually see that in young people. When we were growing up, you have to be initiated to be actually called a man. We haven't done initiations in most parts of the Abalam domain in 30 years. So we may have started losing our way, but I see alcohol as being one of the biggest influences because it's broken down a lot of our traditional respect. In my house, man, they'll say this: at time you go to place you must stop easy. Like, you don't go and cause trouble. You know, young men these days, they think that they should cause trouble. We need to understand, well, why do you need to cause trouble? In my days growing up, if you cause trouble, retribution was swift.
It's about the volume of noise that we used to have before and now. But you think about the boombox generations that we have now, it's a kind of assertiveness, trust and respect the borders between our houses. There is a kind of ungrateful loudness. Why do we have to be loud? To spread our name, to spread our violence and vengeance. And why have to be loud to be boastful? Is there something valuable in being quiet that we have lost? It's too loud in the city.
In the housemary, there were invigorating conversations about choices and decisions.
I work at Port Moresby General Hospital for 45 years. We deliver 50 to 60 every day. And that includes teenagers as old as 11, 12 years old. When I say teenagers, even 6 to 10 too, it really hits me. Do they have a guardian? Do they have a parent? We always run out of resources. We always run out of nurses and midwives and doctors. And you know, the woman is the source of life. The Bilum we are trying to launch is the source of life. Bilum is also the uterus that the baby grows. If we don't have girls and women to the right age and with guidance and with the right channel, Papua New Guinea will not have a population.
What is consent? What do you understand by consent, and what should consent look like in an intimate relationship?
Consent to me is agreement between a man and a woman to do something at a certain point in time. I've seen and I've observed many in the community do not fully understand what this means. In the village, the husband thinks that they own their wives or they own their husbands, and whatever they say, that's it. Our women in the village do not realize, but they experience, marital rape, and they cannot speak out freely about it.
Us as Papua New Guineans and as Melanesians, we shy away from those intimate things, consent between a husband and a wife, and then something blue blind, discuss it within the privacy of your own room. Or both people need to have some level of understanding where they're able to make that informed decision. Girls as young as 11 and 12 at Pomgen giving birth. What's her story?
Some of the barriers, challenges would be ability to access information and services. Sometimes it could be a cost factor that maybe she doesn't have the financial capabilities to afford a bus fare or something like that to get to her destination. The safety is not guaranteed, or she can't travel alone, or it could be the distance that she has to travel. In terms of changes, the reality is when a woman decides or is in a position to decide for herself, most times society thinks that something is wrong with her.
As the day unfolded, these conversations formed the foundation for the first of its kind interaction amongst leaders, government departments, development agencies, the health sector, and the youth of PNG.
We can put an end to unplanned teenage pregnancies. So what are the key 3 ingredients we need to make a change? Firstly, we need a radical change of our mindsets. We need to transform our attitudes and think about some of the beliefs and some of the societal norms we have, because too often there's a lot of stigma around teenage pregnancies, and that's also the reason why many teenage girls don't seek help and why they get access to illegal abortion drugs and then put their own lives at risk. Secondly, we of course have to continue to improve the relevant policies and the regulatory framework. We need the review and the finalization of the adolescent health policy to ensure that all adolescents, children, have actually access to the knowledge about their bodies and awareness how to protect themselves, including from unwanted pregnancy. And then thirdly, we have, of course, quality reproductive health services which must be ensured. There has been too little investment in health services overall, and especially reproductive health facilities.
The Constitution became the beacon, a guiding force for the future. The preamble's first translation into Tok Pisin, making it meaningful to the country at large.
The spirit of the Bilum campaign is enshrined in the preamble of the PNG Constitution. When we declare that we, the people of PNG, acknowledge the worthy customs and traditional wisdoms of our people, which have come down to us from generation to generation, and pledge ourselves to guard and pass on to those who come after us the noble traditions, that we need to protect everyone in our families and in our communities.
The Bilum campaign told the stories behind the multitude of designs, a knowledge that had been historically passed on through generations, but lost in recent times.
12 years of hard work with Goroka Bilum Festival doing research that has brought me this far. And not forgetting the 20 years of the Bilum journey that I had. Wanted to convince people that we can do it. I can defend Bilum, I can look after Bilum. It's time to stand up together and protect that. But not only Bilum, people, we have to start visiting the baskets and other stuff that will be losing their traditional knowledge very soon if we don't look after it.
The preamble you see on the screen here, it speaks of building on the traditional wisdom of the past and to create equal opportunities for men and women. The Constitution is the original Sustainable Development Roadmap for Papua New Guinea, and it stands proudly with one foot in the past and another facing the future. No one is invisible in the Constitution. Everyone counts.
We no longer have those big extended families, certainly around the towns. You've got young men who are perhaps members of a nuclear family. They are shipped off to school where there's a stranger there. We begin to lose that connect.
One of the biggest challenges is information that is youth-friendly, spaces for young people to come and actually get information or speak about the challenges that they're having. And, in Papua New Guinea, when you talk about reproductive health, when you talk about women's bodies, these are discussions that are considered taboo. We talk about them in secret. The reason why we decided to start these conversations this way, where we group, we have the Houseman Dialogue, where we have the Housemary Dialogue, and particularly the Houseman Dialogue, we need a starting point for these conversations. And we need to start at a point where people feel most safe discussing these topics.
The development agenda is not only for the male population, it's also for the 2.2 million women of reproductive age. The Bilum is part of the woman's story in PNG, and their story must be understood and acted upon for the sake of the present and the future. Today, let's commit to reinforcing the uncomfortable but necessary conversations between the young and old that we need to have to keep PNG on a positive development trajectory. We commit to investing in building social capital. We are the elders now. It's our responsibility to look out for the young of today. This is a partnership. Together we make change happen. Yumi PNG.